Okay, this is very important, so wake up and pay attention. This is one of the most important things as a consumer that you might learn in this contracts course, and that is the parole evidence rule. The parole evidence rule. Now, this doesn't have anything to do with parole of a crime. This has to do with a written contract, okay? And what the parole evidence rule says is that if there is a written contract between the parties, it is presumed that everything that was important to the parties was included in that writing. And if things were promised to you that did not get included in the writing, and later you don't get those things that were verbally promised to you, and you want to go to court and sue the guy for breach of contract, if the thing that you're asking for was not written down in the agreement, it's presumed in law that it did not exist, and you are not allowed to bring any evidence to court about verbal promises that were made to you, because the written document in the eyes of the law speaks for itself. So if it's not in the writing, it wasn't promised to you, you don't get it, and you're not even allowed to bring any evidence into court about verbal promises that were made to you by whoever you were dealing with on the other side of the contract. That is the parole evidence rule. The writing speaks for itself. Anything else that was promised to you that did not get included in the writing doesn't exist, and you cannot bring evidence to court to show evidence that it existed. That is the parole evidence rule. As you might imagine, it can sometimes create some pretty unjust results, because you go to a car dealership, they promise you all this stuff, and you sign and you find out the extra stuff they promised you, like chrome wheels or a certain kind of stereo, did not get included in the writing, and it doesn't get delivered with the car, and you don't get it. Actually, that happened to me when I bought my first little sports car when I graduated from West Point. They said, if you pay this price, we'll throw in a free roll bar. It'll make your sport car look more racy, and it'll be safer. It's about a $300 value. We'll throw in the roll bar for free. Well, when the car was delivered, no roll bar, and they said, well, they're delayed in shipping, we'll get it to you later. And I kept going back and going back. I never did get my roll bar, and it was not written down in the contract. If it's not in the written contract, you don't get it. So here's the thing, because, and you'll see in your handout, or I'm sorry, in your printed information with this section of the course, the parole evidence rule tends to create some pretty unfair results, and so over the years the courts have developed about 7 different exceptions to the parole evidence rule, where sometimes, if you're lucky and you go to court about something that was promised to you but didn't get into the written contract, you might be able to get in some evidence under one of those exceptions to the parole evidence rule. But here's what I want you to do. I want you to live your life as if there are no exceptions to the parole evidence rule. If something is promised to you and you write up a written contract, every single thing that is of any importance to you at all, you make sure that it's in the written contract, and you live your life as if there's no exceptions to the parole evidence rule. If it's not in that writing, you're not going to get it. And if you live your life that way, you will have a much happier and much more successful life. Now, there's a couple of other important points on that. The first one is, someone presents to you a long, fancy, typed up written contract by the lawyers and says there's a deadline and we need to sign this right now, and you look at it and you notice that one of the things that's important to you that was promised to you by the other side somehow got left out of the written contract. And you say, no, I don't want to sign that, we need to put the extra thing in. And he says, look, we spent hours typing this up, we got a deadline, we have to hurry, we need to have it signed today, just trust me, we'll take care of that. No. You tell him you took a law course and your lawyer, Litchfield, said to you, no matter how fancy or how long the contract is or how well it's typed up or what lawyer drew it up, there is no contract in the world that you cannot, if something important to you got left out, you cannot take a blank piece of paper and write across the top, addendum to the agreement, and write down by hand what it was that was left out that's promised to you, and have the parties sign that extra paper when they sign the contract and attach that to the back of the contract. There's no contract in the world that you can't attach an addendum to, and have the parties sign the addendum, and then have everything that's important to you be in the writing. So do that. Now, one other point about that. If you know, whoever sells you something is always just going to be your best friend, and you're going to, sometimes they are a friend. You're going to be in some kind of relationship with them, and they tell you, well, I'm not signing this until we put the extra term in there that you promised to me. We can put that in an addendum quickly and sign that too. And he says, oh, you know, that's going to mess up our beautifully typed, lawyer-drawn contract. I don't know if I'm allowed to do that. We'll have to take it back to management. Just trust me, I promise you, I'll take care of that. Don't you trust me? And here's your response. Look, I don't want to offend you. I don't want you to think I believe you're dishonest, or I don't trust you. But here's what my lawyer said about doing an addendum if anything's left out of the written contract. He said, it's like putting a padlock on the boat. What? What's he talking about? Look, if you own a fancy boat and you keep it tied to the dock down at the marina, the chances are, if it's got a door that goes down into the cabin of the boat, the chances are you have a little $2 padlock on that door, and when you're not there, you keep that door locked. Now that padlock is probably screwed into some soft teak or mahogany wood, and any serious criminal with a screwdriver can break that lock off of there in 20 seconds and get in and burglarize your boat if they wants to burglarize your boat. So why do we don't put that $2 padlock on that boat to keep a serious criminal out of the boat. We put the $2 padlock on the boat to keep the honest people honest. Some teenager or kid, nosy neighbor at the boat dock, you're not there, and they're walking up and down the dock, and if they see that the door to your boat is not locked, they might be tempted to go in there and snoop around a bit, and while they're in there they might break something or they might take something. But if they see a padlock on your boat, most honest people are not going to break in your boat and go in there. So let's put the padlock on the boat, let's write the addendum, the thing that you left out, and we'll sign it, and I'll sleep better at night. We'll all know we're keeping the honest people honest. We put the padlock on the boat. Okay, so that is the parole evidence rule. I do not require you to learn for testing purposes those 7 exceptions to the parole evidence rule, because I want you to live your life as if there are no exceptions to the parole evidence rule, and whatever it is that's verbally promised to you, you check and make sure it's in that writing before you sign it, and if it's not in there, you insist upon writing by hand an addendum, an extra page of the contract, and putting it into the addendum, and you will have a much happier and much more successful business life.